Imagine this. It's your preteen during 2020's lockdown, and you are the epitome of a nerd. Especially when it comes to Tumblr. You know how to respond when someone said they like your shoelaces. You know that Supernatural has a GIF for everything. And you know how to spot a amino screenshot that's been tinted green. You are essentially, you want to be a Tumblr teen, but you know you're not. Then lockdown happens, and you know exactly what to do. Well, it's not something you've already wanted to do. You are going to create fanfiction about your favourite ship ever. But what about a beta reader? You've got no one to go to read them for you, and you don't exactly want to talk to people on the internet. So what do? Well, I mean, your teacher's right there, and she agrees straight away. So what happens 6 years later when you suddenly remember this in the middle of the night and are filled with horrific reminders every single day? You make a video about it. Hi, I'm Victor, and today I talk about my most embarrassing moment when I was a child. And that was when I, as a small preteen, decided to send all the fanfics I wrote to my religious studies teacher. So let's get into it. But first, let's start with what I'm drawing. For today, I'm just going to be drawing a bunch of chibis and memes for the two characters in question that will be explained further on to this video. As you're looking at them right now, you probably don't recognise them. So the story begins March 20th, 2020. As it did with many people, as this was the day I went into lockdown. Now, it was a strange time for all of us, but I think especially when you were going, like if you were like me and you were going through puberty, it was very strange. And so I had to have lessons online, as many people did. And because of that, I spent most days, and because of this, I had many of my lessons online, like many people did. And I didn't have that many teachers, so sometimes you would have the same teacher 2-3 lessons. So I had the same teacher for both my opening morning lesson, which was just getting settled down normally, and the same teacher for when I had to do both religion and social studies. Now, for the sake of this video, I'm going to refer to her as Miss M. Now, Miss M was a very nice teacher, but she was in fact Canadian, and because of that, she really wanted to leave England, where I live, and she wanted to go back home, but of course, because of the lockdown, she had to stay here. Now, I didn't think she was religious, and I still think she isn't, last time I saw her. So, you don't need to know that for this. But just know that every morning when I had to log on, she was the first teacher I talked to, and she was the one I went to with all my problems, which is very important for later on in this story. Now, let's talk about my preteen love for fanfiction. Let's be honest, I still have this love. I still write fanfiction to this day. I literally made one this month. But we'll start with my first ever ship, and that ship was Death DL. Now, if you don't know what Death DL is, where have you been? But it is the ship of the character of Dean Winchester and the character of Castiel from the TV show Supernatural. Now, this is like the most popular ship, and I'm not saying that just like because I'm a fan of it and I ship it. I mean, it's the fact that it was one of the first ships to go over 100,000 fics on Air Free, and the fact that it was quite possibly most people on Tumblr's first introduction to shipping. And it was my first introduction to shipping because I adored them. It's channel where I lived, there's a channel called Channel 4, and on that channel, season 14 of Supernatural just got added before lockdown began, and of course I was ecstatic with that. And then, of course, as we all know, later in the year, season 15 came out, and we were all horrified. Anyway, this was the ship that I adored the most, and I began writing fanfics of it at this point, and I still do. I mean, the fanfic I mentioned writing this month, it's Death DL, and I will always write Death DL, I think, until the day I die. Now, when I started writing the fanfiction that I'm going to be talking about for this this story time. These were fanfiction called The Angel and the Immortal, and what essentially it was the angel, Katia on this point, falling in love with Dean, who was an immortal man who had lived since like the 1910s, 1900s, just all through that. And they meet. Well, actually, I'll explain it further when we get to the actual meat and bones of the story. But essentially, I wrote this story and I went, I need a beta reader, so I sent it to my teacher. Now, I was smart with this. I wasn't like, I'm going to send this SDL fanfiction to my teacher. No, at the time I was slightly smarter than that, so I rewrote the story to change character names. Some character names didn't change, some stayed the same, but most character names were changed so that when someone read it, they wouldn't immediately think, oh, this is a SDL fanfiction. They'll go, oh, this is a nice fanfiction about an angel and an immortal guy. So Castiel's name got changed to be Raphael, which I don't know why I was obsessed with the name Raphael. I think it had something to do with good omens and that being a massive thing about Crowley's real name. And then Dean's name was changed to James, because James Dean, haha, very funny. And then after that point, I sent it to her, and it was only like 6k words, not that much, and she loved it. She absolutely ate it up, which I don't understand. I'm pretty sure it's probably like the worst fic I ever wrote. But after that point, I was happy. I was like, oh, someone liked my work. So what did I do? I wrote 3 more in quick succession, probably like only 2 weeks between them, and I sent them all to her, and she read every single one. I even remember that during when I said the last one to her, like 2 days later, I asked if she had read it. It's like, calm down, that's like 10k words you just sent to her. But yeah, she said she loved it, and I was ecstatic because little child getting the praise from a teacher. Oh my god, favourite. But once that had happened, and I was so happy that I wrote a 5th and final one. 5th and final, despite the fact that in my 4th one I pretty much had a definitive ending, which is like so supernatural of me. So in this 5th and final, it was much more adult, it was much more graphic, I would say. There was definitely scenes in it I remember writing, I was like, ooh, maybe not. But it was definitely graphic. But then, I never sent it to her. I'm pretty sure I never sent it to her. If I did, she never mentioned it, because I know that she would have been like, why are you writing such a graphic scene of the 2 characters in the kitchen? Yes, I did do that. That's one thing of it about that one I remember. And that's just funny to me. I did that, especially to her. So when this memory came back to me recently, I was like, oh, I don't know if that's a good thing. Because what essentially happened is I remember this fanfiction I made right after I posted my new fanfiction for Pride. I went, I wonder if there's any other Pride things I've done. Oh no, there's these other things I did that I don't talk about. And it's embarrassing going back and realising this is what happened. So I decided, well, why not? I talk about what I remember from these fanfictions. I don't think that's a good thing, but let's talk about them. So, fanfiction 1 starts off where we meet Dean / James. I'm going to refer to them as their character names in the story, not in Supernatural, if that makes sense. So James, we meet him in 1919, and what we find out is he's been trapped inside for most of the decade because he dodged going to World War One, or as it's called in the story, the Great War. And then later in the story, he bumps into this guy. He don't recognise the guy. The guy's like tanned with white hair, because I was obsessed with doing that for some reason as a kid. And as he sees him, they bump into each other. He falls over. He's kind of mean to him, but like then they still really get on. He thinks he's attractive. And then once that happens, they don't meet again for a couple of years. Then it's suddenly, or they do meet, I can't remember, but I think they might meet sometimes over the years, but they're not really friends. Then a couple of years later, Raphael comes to his door, and he's hurt. He's got like a pipe in his abdomen. It's really weird. And he touches James, and he says Latin to him, and he doesn't know what he's saying. I can't remember what I wrote. I think it was like something like wings or something. And because of that, James is suddenly changed, and for the next 100 years after that, he lives just again and again. He doesn't die. He stays the same age he was when Raphael died in his arms. And every year that he's alive, he gets a freckle on his face, and then in the final 10 years, he gets 10 freckles on his neck in the same area. Now that's weird to him, but he's like, oh, whatever, I'm immortal. That's the normal thing. And then, during the 100th anniversary, Raphael comes back. I don't remember what really happened after that point. This is like only the start of the story as well, which is pretty bad. But I know Raphael comes back, and they are friends, and they stay friends. They don't really do anything, but we know that something else is going to happen, obviously. Then later on in the story, Raphael takes James to the underworld. I say underworld, I'm just hell. He takes them to hell. They go to, I believe it's London. They might go to China as well. They just go to a hell mouth, and they go inside of it, and they discover a lot of stuff. They discover Lucifer's planning to do something with his wife, and it's all like a mess, really. But after they leave, we learn so much more about this. And we also learn that Raphael is back because he's been sent back down by the angels, Michael and Metatron and Gabriel. And for some reason in the story, Gabriel is his brother, but the other two aren't. I think that's because of supernatural fan fiction, but we ignore that. Now, once that's done, they go through the entire story. If I remember what happens, I don't, but once that's over, at the very end, and Raphael realised that heaven's been tricked, he's been tricked, God's been tricked, if someone's going to hurt God, and they discovered that it's Michael. I think in the original ending it was God that was evil, but I was like, that's a bit too similar to Supernatural, so I changed it so it was Michael was evil, but then again that's also similar to Supernatural. I don't know what I was doing. Anyway, so that's how the first one ends. So the second one opens up with Raphael and James on the couch. They are tickling during New Year's. They are pretty much still friends at this point, but it's like teetering on in sexual tension. And then we meet Gabriel, and Gabriel's got a bigger role in the story because we discover Gabriel has a crush on a female angel called Uriel. Now, Uriel wasn't in the first story, but I feel like she should have been because she is very important in this one. Now, in this one, Uriel needs help because she had a one-night stand with a human, and for some strange reason, she's somehow gotten pregnant. It's like a reverse of the Virgin Mary story. I don't know why I did that. It was very odd of me. But anyway, the entire story is about keeping her away from both heaven and hell, and they go to a cabin where she gives birth, and for some strange reason, she has twins called Apollo and Artemis. Don't ask why I named them after Greek mythology. I cannot tell you. I think I was just a dumb child who loved Greek mythology, so I did that. Then once that's over, heaven and hell come. The twins are able to save her, like stop people from getting to her, and then she dies. I remember very vividly she dies. She might come back, but I think she dies, like in this part. But another important part of the story is the fact that we learn that Uriel, the one night stand we had, the reason why it worked with a human is because the human already had angelic powers, because it was James and her had a one night stand a couple years ago, and because she's an angel it took a while to take effect. And yeah, so these two kids are now missing their mother, but they have James who's their dad, and Gabriel who wants to be their dad, and they have Raphael who's like, well, I guess I'm the uncle, so I'm going to stay in. Which again, that's another point of why only Michael and Raphael are related, because that would be weird if Uriel was their sister. I don't know why. I don't know how I planned this, but I was like, that's weird. Book 3, I don't remember much happening. I know the twins grow up super fast in this book. Like Jack from Supernatural, they grow really fast, because Artemis and Apollo are essentially Jack, but twins. I do know that in this book we discovered that Lucifer's wife Lilith is pregnant. I don't know why. So many of the women in my stories were getting pregnant. I don't even like pregnancy tropes. But yeah, she gets pregnant. We discover that there's a war being planned. I think at the end of the story she might give birth. Or at least she's about to give birth. But I think that Uriel also comes back by this point. I think I just brought her back straight away, like Supernatural does. Because I remember there's a plot point, it's either in the third or the fourth one, where she has a sister, and her sister went missing, believed to be stuck in hell. And then when Lilith is giving birth, she reveals that her sister died, or Heaven killed her sister. It's a very odd storyline. I don't know why I wrote it, but it's just a storyline I remember like, oh, that's a bit weird. Anyway, after that point, book 4 happens. Now, book 4 is like the biggest one, I'm pretty sure. It's like, it was 10k words. And this one was the battle against heaven and hell. Except there wasn't heaven and hell, it was just the main characters versus hell. I didn't really care. I think Michael joins Lucifer at this point, so but gets backstabbed by someone. So that's just what happens. So the story continues to this point. Lilith gives birth. I don't remember the child's name. I think she might name it after Uriel's dead sister. So I think she's called Ariel or something like that. I might have to check or find out in some way. But after that point, the story gets to the big climatic battle. Almost everyone is fighting, but then suddenly Raphael gets stabbed again, exactly in the same point as the pole from the book 1. So it's like, calling back. I didn't know I could do that. And James is distraught, and the Artemis and Apollo are able to end the war, stop it from continuing. I think Lucifer survived as is reformed, but Michael dies, or Michael also gets reformed. I don't remember. But anyway, after they discover Raphael, dead on the floor or whatever, Gabriel tells James, if you go to this place called the Dead Sea, which yes, I was using real places as well. If you go to the Dead Sea and put him in the water, he will be healed, he will be revived. So James does that. James gets an angel to teleport him to the Dead Sea, and everybody goes there and puts him in the water, and for a while it seems like he's not waking up, like he's just in the water floating. So everybody just leaves James to mourn him, but then all of a sudden, boom, Raphael's up. He's seemingly alive, and it's like, oh great, and as he's in the water he beckons James to come in with him and he kisses him. So I believe that's actually when their relationship begins. So it was like this 4-book or 4 fan fiction and slow burn, and they didn't even kiss until the 4th one, and then the story ends like that. Like I'm pretty sure they go to bed at one point, and Gabriel catches them in bed, like just sleeping, cuddling, and he's like, oh, I didn't know you two were dating, and then that's like the end of the story. Well, there might be a wedding between Uriel and Gabriel if she does come back, but I don't think there is. However, what we will talk about is the 5th book, which was not called Angel and the Immortal 5, but it was called Bluebird. Now the reason it was called Bluebird was because at the end of the 4th book I linked to a Destiel fan song called Bluebird, and I sent it to my teacher. And you gotta keep in mind, at this point she thinks I'm writing original stories, but then I link her to a song which in the title has brackets that say Destiel fan song, and so at this point she must know, after reading the last one, that I had made fan fiction, which is a bit awkward. But anyway, we're going to the final one, which was Bluebird. Now Bluebird is a weird one because not a lot happens, like literally, like that's the plot. The plot is nothing happens. So the plot happens, and so they're in a relationship now, and they're thinking about getting married. So one of them proposes, I think it's Raphael, although I'm not sure. And after that point, they both go to bed, and they wake up, and it's a year later, like a year's passed, they have somehow both slept for a year. Like, if I could, I would. And once they had done that, they discovered that all of their wedding has already been planned by Uriel and Gabriel and the twins. And once that happens, we just have a lot of scenes of them kissing, being a couple, loving each other. Like, at one point I think Lucifer finds out they're in a relationship because he didn't know before, which I find funny. And then after that, at this very end of the story happens where they have their wedding. So they wake up again. It's been like 2 months apart because they've learned how to control the power of sleeping for years or months, and it's time for a wedding. And so they get married, and I think Raphael goes down the aisle and James is waiting, but they get married and they're in love, and I swear they had a kid. I have a vivid memory of them having a child at this point, or maybe like during the 1 year sleep they suddenly have a kid. But I might be like misremembering Uriel's pregnancy and Lilith's pregnancy with the idea that they had kids as well. So I don't know, but if they did, that's hilarious, I think. But anyway, that's where Bluebird ends. It's just a wedding, because for some reason I love ending on like pregnancy, labour, or weddings. Like, it was like a massive event for me. But anyway, once that's over. I never wrote for these fake supernatural characters again. It was just that, 5 and done, boom, and I never sent the 5th one to my teacher. Now, well, she never told me if she knew they were fan fictions, and I'm not going to like try and sort her out now to find out. So, Miss M, if you see this, yes, those characters I wrote for the Angel and the Immortal that I sent you during lockdown were fan fiction, and no, I'm not really sorry about writing it. Yeah. But that will be the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed. As I was closing up this video, I realised that I thought that I had written all these fan fictions to my school account and they were deleted since my school account, gone, ungraduated or whatever. But it turns out, oh no, I wrote them on my old email under my dead name, so that's great. So, if you want a dramatic reading of 5 really poorly written DSDL fan fictions about OCs, each who are meant to be DSDL, tell me and we'll have a day of me just reading the worst fan fictions you have ever seen. Apart from that, please like, comment and subscribe, guys. It'll really help me out, and I will see you hopefully in the next video. Thank you for visiting my grave. This has been Victor, and goodbye.